Okay, Jackie, let's talk about what organic means. We hear in the news and in the grocery store and everywhere we go now, or that we need everything to be certified organic. So, in general, what is the United States Department of Agriculture, how does the United States Department of Agriculture define organic?
Well, organic is a very loosely used term, and it's not necessarily a term that I agree with its definition. The government says as long as you're producing a product that is in an area that will not harm the animals or other animals or people within that area, you're considered organic. So for instance, you wouldn't use chemical sprays to weed, or you wouldn't use antibiotics to get the health of your birds up if indeed they do catch a cold or something. Now, I actually practice what would be considered organic methods, but I call them natural methods. I raise my animals the way I would raise my children, and that's as drug-free as possible. And even at their illness, I will not provide them medication. And even in a worst-case scenario, if I have to euthanize the bird, that's the choice I make before I will put chemicals in its body. The problem with organic is I'm not sure there's a real clear sense of the word, and what it truly means to be organic would require a closed system. So that would mean having your animals in a building that is completely free of the exterior environment. Temperatures would have to be controlled, heat and cold. The type of feed that they're getting would be controlled. The type of water that they're getting would be controlled. They could have zero access to sunshine, zero access to the outside world. Because the fact of the matter is, chemicals that are used on fields in the farming industry are both water and airborne. So if a farmer sprays his field and you happen to be downwind of him, those chemicals will both be driven by air and by water supply. They could end up on your land, obviously being consumed by your animals. Thus, the organic idea kind of goes out the window. The reason I don't believe in paying for the organic permitting is because I probably am practicing far better biosecurity and a far healthier feeding practice with my animals than those who are paying for that terminology. Now, in the grocery store, you have to believe people are doing the right things. And so you have to have faith that if they're paying for that permitting to be called organic, that they are indeed doing everything in their power to be organic. But I would find it very difficult to believe that someone who has a farm as large as ours, who has to practice weed control, because where there's weeds, there's rodents. Where there's rodents, there's small game. Where there's small game, there's death to my animals. And although we don't weed our weeds, most farms do. I don't weed our weeds around our duck pasture because they actually use that as a bedding. They make nests inside them, and then that's where they like to lay their eggs. It also provides them cover from eagles, hawks, and other birds of prey. On the chicken side of the property, however, I have to be very cautious, and although we bait for rodents and we don't have a problem, I don't want to create a problem by giving them a place to hide. And so we do weed whack when it's possible on the exterior of the fence. But there are times over the years that I spray the weed line just because they've gotten so tall, and because biosecurity is my number one concern, and that is keeping all rodents and other animals from entering the property, leaving their feces behind. I have at times been forced to spray the fence line. But as a rule, we always have goats on the property, and most recently we've been investing in Cows, so we have purchased our first dairy cow, and she is a wonderful grass eater. Had I known how much grass she would have ate on the fence line, I'd have been doing cows years ago. She actually has really been eating the fence line, and so what I'm hoping is, as I add to the cow group, that I will no longer have to weed whack, which means I will no longer have to worry about spraying either.
All right, so can you wrap up organic with why do you think it's important that your farm uses those ethical practices?
Well, to maintain a customer base, you have to have a quality product. And the only way to achieve a quality product is to have a healthy, happy animal, whether it's your beef cow or, in my case, your laying hen, which produces a wonderful, delicious egg. And by incorporating the practices of organic, even without the permitting, what I'm doing is I'm providing a healthy option for my chickens and my goats and my cows to eat grasses that have not been poisoned by things like Roundup, and to maintain a biosecurity level here that prevents diseases from ending up on my farm, whether it's from rodents or visitors. And even those farmers around me and what they're doing, now that I've lived on this farm long enough to know their practices, when I know that they're going to be spraying their fields in preparation of the planting season, I move my birds out of the way. I just move them to the other side of the farm, or I put them in the chicken house for the day, because those types of chemicals really have a short shelf life. Although immediately they can be dangerous, over a very short time, 20 minutes to a half hour, that poison has lost all strength. So for me, I think it's common sense. I practice it for all my animals. I maintain the biosecurity, and using those ethical practices and that common sense feeding and not medicating my animals, and using old-fashioned goats and cows to keep the grasses down, gives both me, my animals, and my customer base the comfort of knowing they're getting the best, healthiest choice available.